Welcome, everyone, and thank you for coming to this 140th anniversary event and Alumni Recognition Award presentation. My name is Katrina Sunbreeze, and I'm the Senior Director of Institutional Advancement here at AAUW. Whether you're a member of AAUW, a fellowship or grant recipient, a dedicated advocate, or an overall supporter of our vision of achieving equity for all, we couldn't do our important work without this community. In a very real way, there would be no AAUW without you. Those we recognized in our opening slides who are celebrating branch and state anniversaries, who are Legacy Circle members and champions for women and girls, are just a fraction of those who make our work possible. And there are quite a lot of you here today. We're thrilled that more than 1,500 people registered for this milestone celebration, one of the largest ever turnouts for a virtual event at AAUW. We have a full program for you today, so let's get right to it. First, I'm delighted to share with you a video highlighting AAUW's amazing 140-year history. I hope you found that video as inspiring as I did, and perhaps some of you recognize fellow members or alumni in some of the great pictures that were included. It is now my honor to introduce you to AAUW's new CEO, Gloria Blackwell. While she's new to the CEO role, Gloria has been the driving force behind the organization's most successful and innovative programs for over 15 years. Most recently, she served as AAUW's Executive Vice President and Chief Program Officer. During her tenure, Gloria managed and expanded AAUW's esteemed fellowships and grants program, awarding more than $70 million in funding to women scholars and programs in the US and abroad. And she spearheaded our award-winning salary negotiation workshops, which have reached more than 190,000 participants nationwide. Gloria built partnerships with major funders, local governments, and institutes of higher education. She also serves as AAUW's representative to the United Nations, and she significantly expanded the organization's outreach to women and girls of color. Quite simply, Gloria is the right leader at the right time. With no further ado, I'd like to turn over the floor to Gloria.
Thank you so much, Katrina, and again, welcome everyone. It truly is an honor to serve as AAUW CEO. During my first few weeks, I've already had the opportunity to engage with so many members, donors, and supporters, and partners, and I'm so grateful for your support and energized by your passion and commitment. I look forward to connecting with you in the months to come. As AAUW marks our 140th anniversary, the video showed us so many highlights worthy of celebration. There may be many sister organizations in the gender equity space now and over the years, and we value our coalitions and our collaborations, but AAUW was the pioneer. And our collective impact, nationally, at the state level, locally, and even globally, is what makes us unique and has provided deep and lasting contributions to gender equity. From our research reports to our support for thousands of scholars and researchers and the countless laws that AAUW has helped shape, like the Equal Pay Act and Title IX. Obviously, there is much to celebrate, and we should be incredibly proud of all that AAUW has accomplished for women and girls. But we know that we've overcome many barriers to equity, yet there are still plenty that remain, and that is where we must keep our focus. As we think about the future of AAUW and how to remain relevant, we will address these issues largely in the same way we always have, through research, advocacy, and education. But AAUW must commit to ensuring that all women are lifted up, especially those disproportionately impacted by unfair policies and practices. We can do this by ensuring that every research report we develop, every program we launch, and every policy we advocate for takes into account the unique challenges facing those who sit at the intersection of overlapping systems of discrimination. We can't wait any longer for a more equitable society for women. And as we continue to work together, my hope is for an AAUW that fully leverages our unique history and our amazing successes to grow our impact and realize true equity for women and girls. We are living through a very challenging time in so many ways, but what gives me hope are the stories I hear from our incredible fellows and grantees. So let's move to the centerpiece of our celebration today, the presentation of the Distinguished 2021 AAUW Alumni Recognition Award. The board approved my recommendation to establish this award in 2013 to honor a past recipient of an AAUW fellowship or grant who has attained outstanding success and national or international distinction as a result of their AAUW award in their chosen profession or life's work. Well, that's the textbook definition anyway. Here's a simpler description. This award is our way of bragging a bit about how good we are at spotting talent. Some previous recipients include Dr. Tararai Trent, one of the most internationally recognized voices for women's and girls' education, and who also just happens to be Oprah's favorite guest. And our very first awardee was Dr. Melissa Harris Perry, award-winning author, expert host and media commentator, and professor of politics and international affairs. So we don't have such a bad track record, right? And it's about to get even better. We first invested in the recipient of this year's award in 1977 when she received an AAUW International Fellowship. She graduated magna cum laude from Harvard University with a bachelor's in economics and earned a PhD in regional economics and development from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in 1981. She went on to become a global finance expert, economist, and international development professional with more than 30 years of experience working across 5 continents, smashing barriers for women and achieving many firsts along the way. Among honors and distinctions, too numerous to cite, Time magazine has named her one of its most influential people of 2021. She has received many distinguished awards and chairs a number of global and national boards, and serves on multiple top advisory boards and groups. In the midst of this trailblazing career, she made history once again this year when she became Director General of the World Trade Organization, the first woman and first African to serve in that role. Do you notice a pattern? I couldn't be more proud to announce that the 2021 Distinguished AAUW Alumni Recognition Awardee is Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Director General of the World Trade Organization. I'm sure we all wish that Dr. Okonjo-Iweala could be here to accept this honor in real time, but she is just a little busy these days. But I was so honored that she took the time to speak with me just over a week ago while she was at the UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow with over 100 global leaders. And I'm thrilled to share that conversation with you now. I definitely appreciate you taking the time to meet with Director General. I'm Gloria Blackwell, the Chief Executive Officer of AAUW, and it
Yeah.
is a pleasure to honor you as our 2021 AAUW Alumni Recognition Awardee. So thank you so much. We all applaud your appointment as the 7th Director General of the World Trade Organization, the first woman and African to occupy this critical global role. And we really do thank you so much for sharing your time with us because, we really are so proud to count you among the prestigious alumni of AAUW's International Fellowship Program that has supported over 4,000 scholars from over 150 countries since 1917. I really enjoy hearing people's memories about when they received their AAUW fellowship because I know for so many it was a life-changing and very positive event. So, how did you hear about the fellowship and what do you remember about being named an AAUW fellow back in 1977?
Well, before I answer, I want to tell you just how honored I am and thrilled at this recognition, which I wasn't expecting at all. I already feel like I owe you so much. So to get a double recognition is just amazing. You just can't imagine, this was my first year of graduate school when I applied for this fellowship. And, I had said my father had worked really hard to try and help me get through undergraduate at Harvard. And I thought going into graduate school, I have to do the maximum possible to be able to help out. So I applied for this fellowship. I had a research assistantship, which paid like half my tuition. So I still had half and living expenses when I applied. And when I got this news, I wish you could have seen my face. It was one of the happiest days and moments of my life. It made it possible for me to go through my first year effortlessly without having to worry about where the next amount of money was coming from to pay my rent or to complete my tuition. And I'll share with you a little secret. I was able to save a little bit of the money so I could buy my wedding dress.
I love that. I love that.
So I was getting married the next year. And, so this was a part of what went into it. So it gave me a lot of independence. It took away the worry. It helped my parents, obviously. So it was a wonderful thing.
That's a fantastic memory, and I will certainly put it away in my fellowship memory box. We are so happy that we were able to help you along your marriage path.
Yeah.
And I'm sure your husband.
I'm sure you didn't know that one of the perks or results would be helping someone along their marriage path.
We didn't, but now we do. Now we do. Thank you for that memory. Okay?
Yeah.
So after receiving your fellowship, it had an impact, obviously, on the trajectory of your career and your life. So once you graduated after receiving your fellowship, what was the next path that you took?
Well, because this fellowship helped me to really get into the field, and that I wanted to get into the field of regional economics and development economics. So that I then decided to pursue a career in that. In fact, having had this fellowship and having been able to go through my first year, I was able to go and do an internship at the World Bank to see what, the actually working in a development institution would be like. I was lucky to get a summer internship. I did that. And after that, I knew this is really where I want to stay. I want to be able to gather enough knowledge in this field so I can go back to my country and give back. And so I pursued a career in development economics. I after I graduated, I was in the UK for 1 year because my husband was finishing his studies then. And then I applied to the World Bank's Young Professionals Program, and very competitive, and I got in. And that's how I started my career in development economics. And from there, I was able to give back at a much later stage. So I thought I would work at the World Bank for 2.5 years, then go home and either go into academics or go into some other field that would be helpful. And I ended up falling in love with the work at the bank because it took me all over the world. So I worked many parts of the world, Africa, East Asia, Middle East, and so on. Then at some point in my career, my government asked me to come back as an advisor, economic advisor, to help with the management of our debt. Because again, I'd acquired a lot of knowledge in debt management. So I went and did that. I took a leave of absence, and that was one of the best times of my life because, you know, that's what I'd always dreamed about. How do I deploy the knowledge I have to help my own country? And then after I'd done that, I came back to the World Bank after 6 months. And a year later, the president invited me back to become the Minister of Finance. So so I went back and I did that for 3 years, and then I became the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the first woman to hold both jobs in my country, Nigeria. And by the way, I'm the longest serving finance minister in Nigeria also, for a total of 7 years in 2 administrations. So you can see this fellowship was so instrumental in setting me on this path. And what was good about it is the way the fellowship was crafted to really give you no worries, you know, to really make sure when you get it, your path is smooth. You don't have to worry about filling out this form or this paper. You know, it was a wonderful fellowship.
That's so fantastic, and it's wonderful hearing about how much the fellowship meant to you and the impact that it had on your career. Obviously, you are among the top women in leadership, and I know that you've written a book on women in leadership, which also includes a call to action for achieving gender equality in leadership. Why do you think it's important to have more women leaders, and what do women bring to leadership that's often lacking?
Well, here is the book.
Thank you.
It's Penguin. I authored it with Julia Gillard, the former Prime Minister of Australia. Let me put it this way. I think, why did we author this book about women in leadership? Because we wanted to put down some lessons that young women on their career path and their leadership path could use to guide them. You know, the 2 of us have been mentors to so many young women and still are, and young men. And for me, it was like a defense. You know, I'm mentoring so many people. If I can capture some of the lessons of my own life, that would help. The same with Julia. And from there, we decided, why not go beyond the 2 of us? Let's speak to other women leaders and see what lessons they have and whether there's any commonality. So that's why we interviewed these 8 women leaders, from Jacinda Ardern to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf of Liberia, to tease out, you know, some lessons for other women, to tease out why it's important to have women leaders at the top. First of all, let me start with this. I'm going to challenge you. Why must we always say why women leadership is different? Women deserve to be leaders because they have the qualities it takes. And we don't have to be leaders just because we're bringing something different. What is it the men bring that is particularly good that women cannot bring? I think women should be leaders because they've got the expertise, the knowledge, the maturity, the lack of ego, the ability to convince others, to be a leader, you have to convince your followership. And women have all these qualities of leadership that are often overlooked. When men have them, they are given a leadership position. When women have these qualities, they are not allowed to lead. So what we're simply saying is that women need an equal chance because they've got the same leadership qualities that men have. You know, so I don't want to characterize it as if women are bringing something special into the relationship. Of course, women have special qualities. You know, so I'm not trying to say they don't, but I'm saying it should be taken on its own merits, that 50% of the human race should be given a chance to lead because they also have what it takes. But I don't want to generalize qualities, which may not always be true of every woman. But we noticed in this book that a lot of our women are willing to, are more risk takers. They are willing to take a risk and take that job that men may not want. A job in a place where, you know, maybe it may be a corporation and encountering a lot of difficulties that needs to be put back on the path of success. It may be a government position that is extremely difficult, even that of an international institution that is very difficult and needs to turn around. It seems women are willing to go into these very tough situations more often, I think, than men when they are allowed to lead. And the examples from this book of how women have done that. And we call it the glass cliff. Very often, women get that chance and take that risk because the men don't want that job. They think they can get something better down the line in a leadership post, but because the women sometimes feel they can't, this is my chance, they take the risk. So we call it the glass cliff because indeed you could, if it's not a well-considered decision, you could fall off the edge.
Absolutely. Thank you. I agree with you 100% on the issue of women's leadership. You know, and I think that you're right. Women need to be acknowledged for their own strengths as leaders and certainly be given the opportunity to serve in leadership positions. Speaking of leadership, I know that your daughter is also remarkably successful in her field as a professor and a medical doctor. Do you think her path to success was easier than yours, and what has changed for women in a generation?
Well, I think what has changed, there are two things. First, the women themselves have changed. I noticed that the younger generation are less daunted by obstacles. They just don't take no for an answer sometimes. You know, and they're more willing to push. So that is a change in attitude. I also noticed that their definition of success is different, sometimes different from the definition of success, maybe in my generation, where it was defined as climbing up the ladder, one step after the other. Many young women these days don't really define success that way. And I think they're right. Success may be more being able to fulfill that talent in you, not in any orthodox way, but being able to use the talent you have to the benefit of others. It's not necessarily climbing the ladder in the classic sense. So they are different. And then two, what has changed for women? I think we must acknowledge that generations of women all over the world fighting for rights has helped other women. It is very true to say we've all climbed on the backs of those who have come before us. And so I have also tried to lay that mark by breaking these ceilings. For me, success about leadership is when people stop talking about it. When you're no longer the first woman, the first this, the first that. You just come into the job and it's normal. But I think the world has also changed. There's more acknowledgement, more openness. I can see in the area of women who are trying to have their careers and also have their families, that there's more understanding on the need for maternity leave, on the need for leaves of absence, on paternity leave, things that during my time you would not even hear, are now becoming quite common. So it makes it a little easier, not too much, for younger women to be able to pursue their careers and not have to make those kinds of difficult choices. So for my daughter in particular, I think she's been in that generation that's seen a little bit of easing and of the ability to manage career and family. Yeah.
Absolutely. And as the mother of two daughters myself, I definitely agree with the generational shift and the almost fearlessness that you see and the demand to be treated equally and not kind of sitting back and waiting for things to come to them, making sure that they're getting a seat at the table. And I think you're right. It's because those of us who came before them, we really do also, we're continuing to lift as we climb. And
Yeah.
that's really, really important.
I'm so glad you see Gloria, because that fearlessness and, not questioning whether you have a seat, you see it in the younger generation, and I love it. I want to say one thing about, sorry that I forgot to say about this book, is that we also have a message for men. It's not only about women. One of the things that we say is in order for women to have a place, men have a role. One, they should make way. Men should learn to listen, often not grab the floor all the time when they have other women in the room, because often that happens and many women have told stories of how they were unable to speak because the men were at the table
Yes.
and speaking all the time. They need to make way and recognize that women have a place. And above all, socializing your boys early on. This is one of the things my husband and I did, to recognize that, this going forward, not only do you have to make room, but you have to be an equal partner so that your spouse can have that ability to have a career and a family.
Absolutely right. It starts early, and it's not just about women.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the family, and it's about men in the workplace, and it's
Right.
about men in politics, and men across sectors. It's not up to women to change the system that was created in so many parts by men. And so
Mm-hmm.
to have that systemic change, it's really about a mind shift among the men who are also in leadership positions, as well as starting in the home. Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up as well.
Yeah.
What do you think is when you think about women in the global community, what do you think is the biggest challenge that women are facing in the global community?
I think that I still think that globally, women leaders still struggle to be taken as one, to be integrated as one of the group. Where you have a group of leaders and women are so few in number, breaking into that group to be accepted as one with the men is still an issue. And you can see it again in the book we write, the women, one woman leader saying, even when she became president, it was still very difficult for her, for the men presidents to accept her in as one of them. So, globally, when you get even to these top positions, you still feel a bit of that loneliness, of not being part of the pack. So again, a lot to do with the men recognizing the women around them who are leaders and giving them equal space, seeing them as one of them, one of the club, if you will. So that's one thing from sort of the personal perspective. I think from the perspective of substance, I mean, we are at a conjuncture in the world, in the global community, where there's so much geopolitical tension, so much lack of trust of government, so many problems of the global commons, which are difficult for any one country to deal with. So we've got climate change now, we've got the pandemic. These are issues of the global common. You need all countries to come together in a multilateral way in order to be able to solve these problems. And so women, like other global leaders, have faced that challenge of how do you really support and strengthen multilateralism? What can you bring, to your fellow leaders that will enable them to see the same common challenge and try to help solve it as one? I think it's a challenge for all global leaders. It's a challenge for women leaders who are trying to make a difference.
Thank you. That's all of that it's just so true. And the challenges themselves can't be solved in a vacuum. They really do require global collaboration. Absolutely.
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 Yeah. And many people have asked me, are women more collaborative, as leaders than men? And perhaps women, we shouldn't generalize ever, but women seem to reach out more. Perhaps that helps. That reaching out helps, when you're trying to build a community, when you're trying to strengthen a global approach. Yes. It can be a contribution. They said the women leaders did better in the pandemic. And that is true. Many of the countries led by women seem to have done better with the way they approached the pandemic, because I think they built trust with their populations. And so when they needed to tell people to do X or Y, they tended to get more of a response from their citizens than perhaps the men.
Thank you for making that really important point. And I'd like to say I have read your book, and I highly recommend it for those who want to really get some insight on the experiences of women leaders. I found it incredibly valuable. So I wanted to close out with a question of the fact that you've really broken so many barriers during your remarkable career. It's very inspiring to me, and I know that it's very inspiring to women around the world. Do you have any advice or pearls of wisdom that you could share with young women today who are just starting out in their careers?
Yeah, like I said, Gloria, I admire young women already because they inspire me too, because they're not willing to give in or take no for an answer. But the one piece of advice I would have for them, if you really want to climb in your field, I'll give you an example of myself. To be honest, I never set out to climb the ladder. What I set out to do was to do a job I would feel passionate about.
Yes.
And I said to myself, what is it you really want to do? From my upbringing, we had been brought up by my parents to know that we must always think beyond ourselves. So I was looking for a career that would enable me to work with other people. And there are many such careers. Mine just happened to be in economic development. What policies can you pursue that would really make a change in people's lives? What kinds of programs or projects? So that I really love. I've always loved what I'm doing. And so for me, it has worked that when you love what you're doing, you just work hard. And the promotions came, the opportunities came. And so that's what I say to women. No matter what you do, please pick something that makes you want to get out of bed and go to work. And I have a rule for myself. I call it the 70-30 rule. If I am in a job and I get up 70% of the time wanting to rush to work, then I know I'm in the right job. The other 30%, nobody can love something all the time. you know, so that works for me. Once I get into something and if that balance is not there, then I know I'm not doing the right thing. So get into something you really want to wake up in the morning and you can't wait to get to the office. Then you know you're doing something you really care about, you're passionate about. And when you're working at it, you won't even know the time. People will recognize you as having worked extra hard or done something extraordinary, and all the accolades start coming and you start climbing to that leadership position.
Excellent, excellent advice. We really appreciate those words of inspiration. Thank you so much, Director General Okonjo-Iweala, for sharing your words of wisdom and inspiration with us. Loved hearing your memories of receiving your AAUW fellowship. That's really wonderful. And now we're going to take some credit for the success of your being able to purchase your wedding dress and get married. As
And I've been
AAUW,
married 41 years, so you can take credit for that.
and it's all because of AAUW. So as AAUW, as we celebrate 140 years of advancing equity for women and girls, we're very proud to have supported a trailblazing leader like you who really continues to serve as a beacon for gender equality. Congratulations on receiving the 2020 AAUW Alumni Recognition Award, and thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for recognizing me all over again. I feel very honored. Thank you.
Wasn't that incredible? I still get goosebumps watching it, and I was taking notes, and I was actually there as part of the conversation. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala really is the epitome of true leadership and an example of the power of supporting women's education. And we really are so proud to count her as our 2021 AAUW Alumni Recognition Awardee. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Julia Brown, Chair of the AAUW Board of Directors. Julia?
Thank you so much, Gloria. And let me first say what a pleasure it is to have the opportunity to work with you and the entire staff at AAUW. If fellow members are like me, after watching that interview, gosh, my chest just swelled with such pride to know that she is one of us and is carrying on the work of what AAUW stands for in terms of leveling the playing field and working to bring about equity for all. As we celebrate this marvelous 140th birthday of our great organization, I want to challenge each of you to renew your commitment to the mission of AAUW and its wonderful work. I know we are all passionate about different projects and different things that the organization does, but this is a wonderful opportunity to think back and look back as we reflect on how many lives this organization has touched over all these years, and looking forward into the future, how many more lives it has the opportunity to touch. Even as we think about this year, which has brought so many transitions for the organization, including the departure of one visionary CEO and now the arrival of another visionary CEO. We've faced shifting political, economic, and social realities that impact our mission, a new president, a new Congress, an unrelenting pandemic that seemingly just won't let go of us quite yet. And many nonprofits are finding it impossible to keep up with all those challenges. Sadly, some of them have even had to close their doors. But I have to say, for AAUW, this isn't our first rodeo. We have faced economic recovery in the past, and we have navigated our way through that. This isn't our first leadership transition. It isn't even our first global pandemic. Women have the kind of resilience when they plan to succeed to do that. And that's what AAUW has done with our dedicated staff, our strong succession plans, and most importantly, to have members and supporters like all of you. We've stood the test of time. And better than just surviving, we're thriving as an organization. So as we mark this 140th anniversary, again, let us all remain firmly committed to our mission. We've got solid financial management, we've got good governance, and we've got new revenue streams, which is a wonderful thing to be able to say in times like these. We've adapted to ensure that we remain relevant to needs of today's women and girls. And I have to add that I'm so proud of the work that our board has done recently in partnership with AAUW staff to update our strategic plan. A strategic plan has to be viewed as a living document so that it is flexible enough to be modified and tweaked as circumstances and conditions dictate. And that's exactly what we're doing. Specifically, we're doing more to center racial equity and to develop inclusive pipelines for women of color. And we're focusing on ensuring that women and girls have equal access to science, technology, engineering, and math, because those are really some of the main fields of the future. And with that, I'm going to thank all of you again for joining us and turn it back over to Gloria.
Thank you so much, Julia. We appreciate your kind words, and also just talking about the future of AAUW and how we're all ready to jump in, join in, and make sure that AAUW continues to grow and thrive. So now we're going to move to the final part of our event. As we celebrate our big birthday, we also want to acknowledge some of our affiliates' own milestone anniversaries, because your history is a part of our history and vice versa. Earlier in the program, you saw slides honoring affiliates with the 50th and 75th anniversaries this year. Now, I'd like to give special recognition to our 100th anniversary affiliates. Our century-making standouts include AAUW California, AAUW of Oklahoma, Baltimore branch, the College Club Incorporated, Maryland, Bradford, Pennsylvania, Chickasha, Oklahoma, Fort Collins, Colorado, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Iron Mountain, Kingsford, Michigan, Jamestown, New York, Lynchburg, Virginia, Manhattan, Kansas, Saginaw, Michigan, Walla Walla, Washington, and Wausau, Wisconsin. Thank you to all of these affiliates, and of course, to all of you. Now I'm going to send it back to you, Katrina, for a final dose of gratitude before we close. Thank you.
Thanks, Gloria. And thanks again to all of you for your support of this organization and your commitment to equity for all. There's one idea I want to leave you with. It's the point I started with, and that there would be no AAUW without you. Our leaders are also passionate about our mission. And in fact, in honor of our 140th, they decided to make some history of their own. Every single member of our board of directors, along with national committee leaders and staff, contributed to create the largest ever gift matching opportunity for our end of year giving campaign. I can't thank them enough for their generosity. That means from now through December 31st, we will double every gift we get, up to $75,000. I hope you'll consider giving to this critical campaign. You can make your donation by visiting auw.org/give140 or simply using the donate button on our website homepage anytime before the end of the year to have your gift matched. Making a gift today is not the only way you can make a lasting impact, and we hope you'll also consider joining our Legacy Circle by letting us know if you designated a gift to AUW in your estate plans. On our website, you'll also find a special online hub we created to celebrate our anniversary. There, you can rewatch our anniversary video, learn more about the Alumni Recognition Awardee, and peruse those branch anniversaries again. If you enjoyed today's program, and especially our conversation with Dr. Okonjo Iweala, please consider making a gift to AUW. Dr. Okonjo Iweala is a living reminder of the wonderful things that can happen when we invest in women and girls. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. Goodbye.